back to another episode. Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, drop us a question. And somebody asked us a question around things that block results. And one thing actually came to mind because they had this really good strategy. And it's can't get it off the ground. It's working, not hitting our goals. And it's very timely because it's the end of the year. It's the middle of December 2022. We're going to be talking about getting stuck in strategy. So this is something that we generally see when people have their team built up. And it's a good team and it's a smart team. And their strategy has been set for the year. And after a couple of weeks, we need to update the strategy. And then all the tactics get pivoted around and or paused, or maybe they keep running a little bit longer. But generally they get paused or turned down because you don't want to waste money because you're changing the strategy. Strategy changes, that cascades all the tactics getting shifted and changed. They get relaunched. At 1 month, you change the strategy. By the time you change the strategy and then changed all the tactics, that took another month. Now you're 60 days in and you're relaunching again. And this is like the good version. Sometimes it could be like 90 days in now of the year. It's like you launch for another 15, 20 days. It's not really catching the way you want again. And it's like a quarter has gone by. We see this a lot with very smart teams that are very strategic, and there's a time and place to review your strategy. That's generally quarterly. So you set your strategy prior to year beginning. You have your budgets in place and everything. And running a campaign, like say you have like a 2-month campaign, run it. Make micro optimizations to it tactically, right? As you see data come in, amend, iterate on the tactic, but don't iterate on the strategy. There's times to do this. When you get to the end of the first quarter and you start reviewing your data, you ask yourself and the team, where are we at? Because here's the thing that we see all the time. People start iterating that strategy too early, and the tactic iteration stops while the strategy is being iterated. What's happening is that the iterations need to be on the tactics to make them work, because maybe you're just like that tiny bit away from making that tactic work and generating results. But also, you need the data. So even if it looks like it's not going to work, iterate on that tactic to get the data. Because then once you have conclusive data that it's like, guys, look, it's not going to work. And we threw the book at the tactic and the set of combining and synergizing tactics around this thing, it's gone. It's not going to work. You need the data to get the learnings so that then you can adapt the strategy, because this is what this infinite strategy loop is about. You don't get enough data, so you can't fully update the strategy. So you iterate the strategy rather than the tactics. Then you iterate the tactics, and you could have iterated the tactics to that level without iterating the strategy. You wasted a whole bunch of time getting stuck in the strategy flow rather than trying to make it work the best you can, being like, yep, we now need to pivot the strategy. We have definitive proof. Really the better way to maybe say this is people do it one way on the tactic side, and they're like, it doesn't work that way, revisit the strategy. It doesn't work that one way, try another 7, 10 ways. Now all of those don't work, and you're like, I have conclusive data of all these things don't work. So it's like, never write it down, post-mortem it, analyze deeply what went wrong and why. Never do it again. Never, unless the market significantly changes and you think that now is the time for some reason. But even then, it should be a very small test at that point. Then iterate your strategy quarterly or every 6 months, depending on the size of your team. Pivot the tactics, relaunch in month 4. That's the way to do it. But if you do it the other way, you could spend an entire year trying to figure out the right strategy, the right combination. We need people. We don't have the skills. We need to hire the skills. All of a sudden, you're hiring people. You're hiring new agencies, people. Going up to the leadership team to get sign off. All of these things, and it's like you're
huge waste of time. Huge waste of time.
Exactly. The most valuable resource, which is time.
Yeah. I think another way to look at this too is with strategy, without execution, without tactics, you get 0 results. In fact, without a strategy, but just with really good tactics, really good execution, you could still get results, right? And so I think people forget, it's like, what should the breakdown be? It's like, how important should strategy versus the tactics be? And at the end of the day, if you're not executing, if you can't deliver on the tactics, the strategy is simply meaningless. That's a really important piece to really factor in when you're building the strategies. Those tactics, how are we going to deliver on them? How are we going to execute this?
I would say, to make this into maybe like a metaphor, the strategy increases the ceiling, like what you can achieve. If you go out and look, and here's the thing, I don't want you to think that Nick and Ricky are out here saying don't do strategy. It's like, strategy is essential. It is
We love strategy.
Incredibly essential.
Yeah.
However, if you're spinning your wheels of strategy for 9 months out of 12 in a year, you ain't gonna succeed, let me tell you. But strategy is basically how far you can go. Like, how high is the ceiling? You're making the ceiling higher. If your tactics are executed immaculately, all the fundamentals, everything, you should, in general, be able to achieve above market results on things like ROAS, ROI, etc., as long as it's not overly competitive. Without a strategy, like just doing the fundamentals, it's like having it aligned, having our ads aligned to the brand, having our emails aligned to the brand, all of the basics, like fundamental things done at a very high level, fundamental.
Yeah.
It's what's going to happen is that you're going to get results and you're going to hit a roof.
Yeah.
And that roof can only be increased and made higher by having that great strategy. But what people do, and this is the whole don't iterate once and then abandon the tactic, it's see where the roof is on the strategy. And that's why you need all these iterations on the tactics to hit that roof, ideally, and say, oh, this is the limitation of our strategy, not the limitation of your tactics. Because basic general tactics should work. Now, if you're stuck in the cycle where you're just iterating tactics and the strategy is not working, you have a bigger problem, because if you're just saying buy from us over and over, you're eroding your brand because the strategy is not working. Because the strategy should be also boosting your brand in addition to the metrics and other KPIs. But that is a problem where, 6 months in, 9 months in, your brand isn't getting better and evolving and touching your customer and making it memorable. That's a more long-term problem than, oh, we're not getting the results we need from a financial standpoint from our marketing. So if you're not getting the financial outputs, like if you're not getting like the metrics, you need to focus on the tactics and you need to focus on them fast, because you need to keep the business going. So overall, don't get stuck in the strategy. Remember, if you think of strategy like the maximum height of the roof, tactics can get you right up until that point where they can't work any further. And then what takes you from where you are, which is already not a bad place, and it should be comparable to market average or even best practice. You should be above those numbers, just on the back of tactics. Strategy straps rocket fuel on you and takes it to the next level, where now the tactics are going to get pulled up by that strategy. So remember, execute your tactics, execute them well. Don't get lost in the strategy. Iterate your strategy 2 to 3 times a year max, and keep the tactics going while you iterate, because you need that data. That's all for now. Till next time.